Hey everyone, welcome to Clear Money Tea. So today I'm going to be talking about Florida. And before we get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so it's not controversial to say that Florida is being impacted by rising sea levels and extreme climate. And they even say that parts of coastal Florida will be submerged underwater. But I think Florida will become uninhabitable long before then. The reason why isn't a surprise to people who are in Florida, and that has to do with insurance. So they're already projecting 40% rate increases for 2023. We're already pretty far into 2023, so a lot of people have already gotten those notices, unfortunately. It's not a surprise. We know Florida has an insurance problem, and it's only getting worse. So yeah, let's talk about it. If you weren't aware of the landscape in Florida for insurance, very broadly, they separate homeowners insurance and flood insurance. So if there's a hurricane and you have flooding in your house, that's not going to be covered by your homeowner's insurance. That would be covered by flood insurance if you have it. And a lot of insurers don't offer flood insurance just because it's so risky. But the federal government does. They offer it through the NFIP, so the National Flood Insurance Program. And in some areas of Florida, mortgage lenders will even require that you carry flood insurance. Overall, there's a few problems with the insurance market. So just in general, for even flood insurance, not enough people are required to have it. And as it relates to flood insurance, rates have been too cheap. So you might think, hold up, rates are too cheap. Like, how is that a problem? The problem is that the rates aren't covering the risk. So for the flood insurance program, that's, way over $20 billion in the hole on that. So that means they're paying out a lot more than the premiums are that are coming in. And that's not sustainable. We all know that we have a debt crisis in the US, and this flood insurance program, quite honestly, is only adding to it. And as we start to have more extreme weather events, it's going to be problematic if nothing is done. So the US government did do an overhaul to try and help with this problem. So they released, sometime in 2021, this risk rating 2. And so there are almost 600,000 NFIP, that flood insurance policies in Florida. And with the new risk rating, let's talk about the pricing. Because remember, like I said, a large part of this problem that we're going to be seeing is issues with insurance. That insurance, it's going to end up being too costly for people to live places. And so let's take a look at some of the pricing that was released. So you can see the average cost of flood insurance in Florida is around $1,000. And with the new pricing model, it'll go up to $2.2K. So that's only part of the story. So let's take a deeper look into the data. If we filter it and go to the most expensive zip code, prices are going to go up to $8,000 just for this one zip code. And yeah, it's just one zip code. But if you select and see how many policies, that will have an increase of over 1.2K a year. That's $100 a month. That's 250,000 policies. And some of these, you're just really going to need to see how stark the contrast is. So imagine you're paying, $771 a year, and then you're guaranteed rate increases every year until you're paying 6.6K. So the cap on the increases is typically around 18%, but it can be as high as 25% in some cases. And you might think, yeah, that's completely doable. I can handle that. But when it comes to selling your house, the new owner is going to be paying that new rate. This is going to impact home prices in Florida. That's going to mean that's money that they're going to be able to afford to even buy the house. It's also going to make people think twice if they even want to buy this house. If you're going to be paying $8,000 a year in flood insurance, you might think, well, should I even be living here? And quite honestly, that is some of the intent, is how I see it with these rate increases, is if you want to live somewhere, you have to be paying the price to live there. So if you're paying for insurance to cover your house in the case of a flood, and your house is guaranteed to flood, then the insurance price should reflect that. And so too, for some more background with these flood insurance risk ratings, you'll see maybe, zone AE or zone X. And for some of these zones, what you're seeing is if it's rated, 1% chance of flooding in 100 years, that's a 26% chance that your house is going to flood in 30 years. And typically a mortgage that you're going to get on your house is going to be for 30 years. So if there's, let's just say like a 25% chance your house is going to flood, and it's going to cost the government wants to say $100,000 for you to do all the repairs and get it back in working order, what price do you think that they should charge? for that kind of risk. And that's where you're getting a lot of this increased prices, because it's a very high risk and it's a lot to take on. But yeah, overall, Florida was not really happy with the federal flood insurance price increases, and they joined in on a complaint. So they sued regarding this. But let's take a look at this complaint. So you're gonna kind of find this crazy. So they wrote, in the Southeast US, Florida stands to lose the most money to flood damage, according to an analysis from the First Street Foundation. Okay, so that's not great. As I said, Florida is, at risk. And they say across the state as a whole, there are 1.3 million NFIP policies with a total coverage of over $366 billion. Let's take a second to just digest that figure. $367 billion in coverage. That's a lot in coverage that the US is taking on. And, when you have catastrophic flooding and issues, that is a lot at risk. And that number is only going to be increasing as there's more policies that are being underwritten and taken on. And so they also make a few other statements in the complaint. They say Florida is prone to flooding because of its geographical location and characteristics, almost like it's not a great place to build very expensive houses. They say with Florida's rapid coastal development, approximately 76% of the population, which is about 15 million residents, live in coastal areas of the state. All right, well, really, you think. So Florida, we know, is prone to flooding, and over 75% of Floridians live in coastal areas. If you're going to complain about rate increases in an area that is covering the risk of you living somewhere, then that means that you can't afford to live somewhere, and that's tough, especially since the US has been subsidizing people living in areas that they truly can't afford to live there when you take into the risk. But at this point, it is what it is. They say nearly half of Florida properties, 43%, are located in FEMA-designated special flood hazard areas or flood zones. And so again, that's a lot of properties under flood risk zones. And they also write, as rates increases, some homeowners, business owners, and renters in Florida could be priced out of areas requiring flood insurance. And I'm sorry again, but this is the price of living in areas that are prone to flooding. The government carries part of the blame for subsidizing this, but at some point, something needs to be done. This can't perpetuate in a cycle, and we can't encourage development in areas that are just going to continue to flood over and over again. It's unsustainable. It's not affordable. And at some point, we're all going to be paying for it. And honestly, reading through this list, you might think that this is in favor of risk-adjusted pricing because you're seeing all these risks outlined and the potential for catastrophe. But honestly, this was all in favor, like I said, of Florida trying to say, hey, don't increase rates. And like I said, Florida is not going to want increased rates. They'd rather the federal government subsidize living in Florida because that means that it's going to just help with the property market in Florida. It's going to be that then the prices would, go up because someone else is taking on the risk, and then that's more tax revenue for Florida. All right, so we know the price of flood insurance is going to be going up in Florida, but something else you might not have thought of is that there's going to be increased coverage that's occurring as well. And so this ties into a lot of problems that we have going on. We have the flood insurance, which is separate from homeowners insurance. And then in Florida, they also have this homeowners insurer called Citizens, which is their sort of like lender of last resort. Citizens also requiring that the majority of people who have their policy, that they get flood insurance, regardless of whether or not they're in a flood zone. And this makes sense because a lot more flooding that we're seeing too does occur in places where it's not even listed as a flood zone. You think about Hurricane Harvey in Texas, that was not a flood zone. So, but overall, you're going to have flood insurance that's going to be increasing. You have people who are already on a lender of last resort, which is not a great sign as well. And they're also going to have to be paying flood insurance, which they didn't have to before, and that flood insurance is going to be much more expensive. This policy that Citizens is enacting is going to be starting in 2024, and it's going to roll out over the next 3 years, where most of the people who have Citizens are going to be required to have flood insurance. And we have the federal government signaling that those who are going to take on that risk of living in this area, that they're going to have to be starting to pay more to live there. And overall, this is really difficult. So, that's flood insurance that's increasing. I didn't talk about it as much, but we have homeowners insurance increasing. Like I said, that's 40% they indicated for 2023. And they already have a lot of problems with their home insurance, a lot of which Florida has tried to fix actually this year. With all the increased flooding risk and extreme climate, it's just insurers have indicated that really that they're not going to be lowering prices. So yeah, there's still a lot of risk going on, and we've seen private insurers pull out of Florida altogether. So overall, this is really difficult. But Florida, they should have done more to outline the risk and same with the federal government. But at this point, it doesn't mean that we can let this issue fester. Hurricane Ian last year caused Florida over $100 billion in damage, and these type of events are just going to become more and more common. So we're just going to have to do something about it. And Florida, unfortunately, is actually just one example. It's going to be impacting other states as well. All right, so thanks for stopping by. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.